Hi, this is Karin from the Huntley Area Public Library, and today I'm going to show you how to make sock bunnies. So here are the supplies you're going to need. One sock, a pair of scissors, a needle, some thread, I'm going to be using embroidery floss, some stuffing for when your rabbit's finished and is ready to be stuffed, 2 buttons for eyes, possibly a third if you want to put a button on for a nose, or you can use felt if you have felt around your house, and 1 pom-pom. This is optional if you want to give your bunny a tail. Okay, so let's get started. This is what a completed sock bunny is going to look like after we've cut and sewn the ears and stuffed it and added eyes. And this is where you would stick a tail if you wanted to have a tail on your sock bunny. This is the sock that I chose for the project. You can use a new sock or you can use an older sock. The most important part is just to make sure that there aren't any holes in the heel of the sock, because that's where your sock bunny's nose and face are going to be, and so if there's any damage to that part of an older sock, it's going to be noticeable. Okay, so you're going to take your sock, and if it's flat like this, you're going to want to turn it so that the heel is facing you. Just imagine that this is the sock bunny's face right here. And then you're going to take your scissors. I recommend using fabric scissors for this project because they're easier to cut with. But other scissors will probably work as well depending on the material of your sock. And you're going to cut a line to make the ears from the top of the sock right here where the toe is all the way down to about halfway between the top of the sock and the heel. I'm going to do that right now. Here's my fabric scissors. And here I'm cutting for the ears. And you want to do it down the middle so that your ears are even in size. So I'm going to stop right there. That's what he looks like so far. Then you're going to turn your sock inside out so that you can sew on the inside of the sock and your stitches will be pretty much invisible. So it doesn't really matter what color thread or embroidery floss you use. I just happen to have embroidery floss around, so that's what I'm going to use. You're going to turn your sock inside out, so now it's super fuzzy, you can see. If you like this side better, you could sew on the other side and then turn this out inside out and have your sock bunny, have this be the right side of your sock bunny if you like the inside of the sock better. I'm going to cut a piece of thread now and sew all the way around this area to close off the ears so that I can stuff those later on. So give me a minute to do that. Okay, so this is my embroidery floss, and I have just cut off a piece that's about arm's length and a little bit longer to sew around this part of the rabbit. And with embroidery floss, there are 6 strands of thread that are all together right here, and that's a lot to stick through the eye of a needle, a regular sewing needle. So what I'm going to do is separate the thread, the embroidery floss, into 2 bunches of 3 strands so that I don't have quite as much to work with. So it's hard to see that on the camera and in my hand at the same time. So I'm just going to separate it like that. It's behaving pretty well. It's good. If it gets stuck in the middle here and looks kind of knotty, you can pull on the tail end of it, and then you should have 2 separate pieces. And then hopefully I've judged this well enough so that I only need this 1 strand to sew all the way around the ears in here. You will need some more thread, some additional thread, so having that extra piece is good so that you can sew on the eyes of your sock bunny the tail, and then you also have to sew up this bottom part later on too after you stuff him. So now you're going to thread your needle. And I like to keep a longer end right here so that when I'm sewing I don't pull the needle off of the thread and have to rethread it again, because threading it can really, having to rethread it a bunch of times can really slow you down when you're sewing. Some people like to tie an end in the knot, or tie a knot in the end of their thread while they're sewing, or when they get started sewing. I'm not going to do that right away. I'm going to start sewing, and then I'm going to tie the knot in the rabbit's ear when I begin. So that's what this is going to look like. So I'm going to start up here in the corner of the ear, the very tip. And here I have the little end, and I'm just going to tie a knot in that. And then this knot is going to stay on the inside of the sock, so nobody's going to see that. So you don't have to worry about trimming it off or anything like that. And then I use just a simple running stitch. So you're going to come into the tip of the ear again, just right underneath where you have that knot. And sew your running stitch. Your stitches may vary. I'm not going to make mine real big or real tiny either. So there's my first stitch right there. It's good to have them close together, or you might have your stuffing coming out. So once you've gone down into the fabric, you want to come up through the bottom for your next stitch. I'm kind of watching myself sew this on the camera as I'm doing it, so maybe my stitches are not going to be the most even here. In through the top. And then your next stitch is out through the bottom. And you're just going to keep doing this all the way around. So I'm going to continue to sew, and you're going to continue to sew, and we'll meet back here in just a few minutes. So you can see I finished these stitches up here. These other ones are a little bit harder to see as I came around the ear where it's all fuzzy. I just wanted to point out that in the center place you want to put in a few extra stitches, or just be careful about making sure that you stitch across here well, just because this is a spot where your stuffing can come out pretty easily. And then I'm going to sew up the side of this ear here now. Okay, so I'm putting in my last few stitches here at the second ear. Suddenly a lot slower since I put the camera back on. I wanted to show you how to tie off the knot here at the end so that your hard work stays in the fabric and doesn't unravel and unleash your sock bunny stuffing upon the world. Okay, so that's my last stitch there, and I'm just going to tie a knot right in the end here. And if you put your finger, your thumb and your forefinger on the knot there, you can hold it so that it gets pretty tight down by the fabric. And I'm going to do another one on top of that. Again, stick your thumb on top of it and hold it down so that you've got a nice little tight knot. The weave on socks can be kind of loose, so you don't want your knot to pull through. Not that your sock bunny's ear is going to get a lot of action probably, but you can go around and do it a third time. Make sure you hold your finger on the knot, and then that looks pretty secure to me. There's our little knot right there. So we can snip off the end of the thread right there with our scissors, and then you can set your needle and thread aside for a moment. We're going to take our sock bunny and turn him right side out again. It's a transformation. There's one ear. Oh, another ear. Okay, here's the other ear. If this is hard to do and your fingers are not working well with getting the ears out, you can also use a chopstick or something long like that to get in there and make sure the ears are completely unfolded. Okay, so here's what our sock bunny looks like so far. We've got the ears sewn, and we've got his little face right here, and then this is going to be his body, and then this is where we'll close him up for the stuffing. So we are ready to stuff our sock bunny now. So I'm going to go get some stuffing, and I will be back in just a moment. Okay, so it's time to stuff the sock bunny, and I am totally out of my polyfill stuffing, which I used to stuff the last sock bunny, and that's really easy to use and work with. So if you have some of that around your house, go ahead and take a handful of that, and you can use that to start stuffing your bunny. What I'm going to try and use is some leftover fleece that I had from some other projects, so I have a nice pile of that I'm going to use to stuff my sock bunny. And you can just open up the bottom, and then you're going to want to stuff the ears first because they're smaller and harder to get up into. So I used to stick my whole hand up there, and then I'm starting to stuff the stuffing into the bun's ears. And like I said before, if your fingers aren't doing the job, you can get a chopstick or a stick from outside. Just make sure it's clean, and use that to help you get the stuffing all the way down to the end of the ear tips. Of course, if you want to have more of a lop bunny where the ears flop over, maybe you don't want to stuff the ears as much or even at all. So if that's the case, don't worry about getting the stuffing up in there. And here's my chopstick in case you want to try and use that. So you would just stick that into the bottom there and can use it to push the stuffing into the ear like that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of stuffing in both of the ears. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Not too much. And since some of my pieces of fleece are a little bit bigger than I want, I'm going to cut those down. For some of the sock bunnies for some of my sock bunnies, I've added a little packet of plastic beads so that they have kind of a beanbag bottom that they can sit on. And you can do that too if you want to. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video though. Okay, so the ears are looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to start doing the face now. I'm going to ball up some of this fleece and stuff the head and the face. Oh, maybe I'm going to want the nose to be further down. And you can add as much or as little stuffing as you want to achieve the bunny shape that you like. Some people like really round bunnies. Some people like skinny itty bitty bunnies. So it's up to you to determine when you have got enough stuffing in here. Okay, I'm going to need another handful. So far this is looking like a very round bun. Some more stuffing material. Okay, and while you're stuffing, you can also start shaping your rabbit too. Like, do you want the head to be right here? Do you want this to be the nose area? This looks like my rabbit's wearing a little mask. That's kind of cute. And how much body do you want your bunny to have? Like, you could stop right there and he'd be kind of short. I think I'm going to keep going a little longer and make him a little rounder. I like the pattern on this sock though. This is kind of a wild sock bunny. Oop. He is kind of straining at the seams now. The sewing part that I did before with the ears, that took me about 10 minutes to do. If you are a beginning sewer, it might take you a little bit longer. But don't be frustrated by that. Just take your time. Okay, I'm liking the shape of the bun, so I think I'm going to stop with the stuffing. And I'm going to fold in the bottom here for preparation to seal up the hole at the bottom here. So my bunny is resting on his head and ears right now, and if this is too much, if you have a lot of material here left to work with, you can definitely take your scissors and trim that down. I think I'm going to do that because this is quite a lot to fold over and under and have it disappear nicely. That'd be quite a big bulk there. So I like to cut it down so that it's pretty close to where the stuffing is. So I took off about maybe a little bit over an inch there. And then you can throw this piece out, or you can save it and make a little headband or a sweater for another bunny. I've done that before. So I'll put that off to the side. And then for this part, you just fold it in, and then we're going to sew a seam right across here and try and make our stitches pretty invisible. I had some thread left over from when we were sewing around the ears, and I still have quite a bit here to work with, so I think that's going to be enough to sew the bunny closed here at the bottom. If this keeps coming apart, you can use some pins to hold it together. That might be easier than trying to do it with your fingers and sew at the same time. I've done a lot of these before though, so I'm going to try and do it without pinning it. So we're going to try and fold in all of these ends, and if they're not staying together right now, that's okay. You can fold them in and down and inside of the seam that you're making here as you sew. And like we did before, I'm going to tie a knot as I sew right here. I just stuck my needle in the bun for a second so that I can tie this knot here. And I recommend setting your bun down on his head again to tie the knot instead of trying to hold him up to a camera like I'm doing here, because this makes it a little bit more challenging. But tie 2 or 3 knots here to make sure that that's secure, and then we will keep stitching once I've got this all figured out. Alright, I think that's okay. So now you've got this little tail end of thread too that you can tuck in to the seam so that that doesn't show. And like I said, fold the sides of the fabric that have that frayed end kind of down and in so that we can make a nice seam here. And then this is not a running stitch, this is like a whip stitch. So you're just gonna come through with both of those folded sides like so, and then come down again to where you started, but next to it, and do the same thing. And if you have a wild print like mine, these will get hidden pretty easily by that print, and no one's going to look at the bottom of your bunny very much anyway. I'm going to tuck my sides in again here, so I've got a smooth surface. I don't have all those frayed ends. And we're going to put in another stitch right here. And keep going like that. I hope your thread is behaving for you and not knotting up. That sometimes happens, especially if you're working with the embroidery floss and you've split it into sections. Sometimes they remember their sections and they want to tie themselves in knots back with something else. And as you're stitching, just keep checking the side to make sure that you've got your ends folded in. So that you don't end up with a big pile of material at this end that you have to somehow incorporate into your stitching here. Okay. I'm going to unfold some of that a little bit because I had extra fabric there. How's it going? We're getting there. We're almost to the other side. Like I said, if you are having trouble, you do not have to hold your sock bun up like this. You can rest its head on the ground if that's easier for you, or between your knees, or on a table. I'm sitting on the floor right now, so I'm holding him up and bracing this arm right here against my leg to get a good grip on him. Okay, so I've finished that bottom seam, and I'm going to tie a knot on this side. I'm just first going to sew into the seam right there, like that. And then do that one more time. And then as I am coming through, I'm going to sew right through this loop to make my first knot. And then I can make another one there. Uh-oh, I think I just lost the needle. And then hold your finger down on top of that knot to keep it tight. And then we'll do, I didn't lose the needle, that's good. We'll do one more. I'm going to hold them down on the ground here. One more knot in there. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So this one you are going to see the knot on the outside, but your sock bunny is probably going to be sitting on it most of the time, so it shouldn't be too unsightly. So we're going to cut that off near your knot. Oh, sock bunny fell over. Put your needle off to the side. Don't leave it on the floor where someone can step on it or lose sight of it. I always like to stick mine in something, so I have this completed sock bunny here, so I'm going to stick it in him as a temporary pin cushion while we take a look at the bun that I just sewed. Okay, so this is a very minimalist bun. He's got some floppy ears going on here, so they're not totally... This is actually like one of my real rabbits, Hickory. He's part lop, and so one of his ears goes out to the side and kind of hangs down, and the other one sticks straight up, and he occasionally will change that. But so this is a Hickory-esque bun. And you can still play around with the shaping of your rabbit. Okay, so I picked out a couple of buttons. I have a collection that I inherited from my aunt, and I like it when they don't match, but maybe you have a preference where your buttons do match for your eyes. And if you don't have buttons or a button supplier at home, do not steal them off your mom's clothes. You could use a piece of felt, or if you have some scrap fabric or something, and just cut out a circle. Those will make great eyes too. I've used felt before. Or if you still have embroidery floss, you can embroider eyes as well. You can also embroider a nose and a mouth too on your bun. I'm gonna not do that this time, but I am gonna put eyes on my bun. So you kind of want to pick out where you want your eyes to be. And if you're using buttons, you want to make sure your buttons have some kind of holes or ways of attaching them to your bun. This one has 2 holes that I can sew through, and then this one has something in the back that will allow me to sew through it, I hope. So I'll start with this eye here. I am going to, let's see, I do have enough thread I think on here to sew the one button on. I might have to add some more or get a new piece to sew the other one on. And with the buttons again, I'm not going to tie a knot. You can, because usually the knot is going to be covered up by the button, but I'm going to wait and then start to sew it on and then tie the knot as I'm sewing. So here in the button is there's a little slot for me to sew through. Oops, drop my needle. So I can start out doing that. And then I want my eye to be about here on the sock bunny. So I'm just going to stick the needle in there and start pulling it shorter here. Okay, so this is the end of my thread. That's where you would have your knot if you made a knot, or where we're going to tie one. So I've got the eye kind of loosely hanging here, and I'm going to tie a knot with this other piece here. So let's show you how to do that. Be really good at tying knots after this, and you can tie it a couple of times. Okay, and then you're going to sew through, that's just one stitch through that hole, so I don't feel like that's super secure. So you're going to want to sew through a few more times. So get a little piece of the fabric if you can with your needle. And then find that hole that's in the back of the button and pass through it again. This is kind of a small hole, and then you can pass into the fabric again on the other side and pick up a piece of that just to secure it down. And we'll try and go through one more time maybe. So there's a piece of fabric I'm picking up, the hole going through. Oops, I want my end to stay out for now. And then picking up a piece of fabric on the other side again. Okay, so that's pretty secure. And now since you've got this nice tail here still, you're gonna tie your thread off using that tail. So you can tie this longer piece to this shorter piece here and make another knot. Knotting, knotting, knotting. Okay, so that's nice and secure. You can use your bun as a pin cushion for a second and get your scissors out and trim your thread. Okay, so we've got one eye on. Okay, and I'm going to pause and rethread my needle. Okay, so we're ready for button number 2. And button number 2 is slightly different from button number 1. It's got these 2 holes that you're going to sew through instead of the hole that's in the back of the button. So we can find a place for that on your bunny's face. I'm going to put it right there. And then I hold it down with one finger. You could also maybe tape it on temporarily if you're having trouble with it moving around while you're trying to sew. This is pretty secure for me though, so I'm nice and braced here. And then you're going to come up through a piece of the fabric like we did before, right underneath one of this first hole. So I'm going to do that. Here's my little piece of fabric. There's my hole. Ooh, we did it. And I'm going to leave a a tail right here so that I can tie a knot. I'm not going to do that right away for this one. Then you can go through the second hole and pick up, you can see in the back here where all of the thread is, and then just pick up a little piece of the fabric and go through that. Your button might flop around a little bit at this point, but don't worry. Okay, nice. And now this is pretty secure and I don't even need to hold it with my finger. I'm going to move it with my finger so that I can get behind here and go through those holes again. So picking up another bit of the fabric with my needle, going through the first hole, going through the second hole, and picking up another little piece of the fabric underneath here. That's good. And then I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure it's really secure. So I'm going to hold the button out there, pick up a little piece of the fabric, oops, go through that hole, and then come down through this other hole and pick up another piece of the fabric. That was a little tight. Okay. Alright, and that's nice and attached. So we're going to tie this off here using the shorter piece and the longer piece of thread. I'm going to set him down for a second, and I've got this piece wrapped over my finger here, and then I'm going to wrap this piece up and around and use the needle to come through to tie that knot. There's one knot and two knots and one more, three knots. Okay, and we're going to trim that off so that the ends don't show. Pincushion bunny for just a second and trim. Okay, so we've got our eyes on our sock bunny. So now you get to decide whether you want to add a tail or not. I have this pom-pom, and you can decide to place it on the back here for a tail. And you're going to sew this on as well. If you're getting sick of sewing, you could use a hot glue gun, I suppose. It probably will not be as secure, but you might also really be tired of sewing at this point. So that's an option if you've got one. To sew this on, you have to sew through the whole pom-pom. And some of them are more fluffy than others, and some are more dense. So I like to hold it on with my thumb like I did with the button, and then I'm going to take my needle and thread and come up through the fabric a little bit behind it, and then right through the center of the pom-pom. And you're going to leave a tail again so that you can tie a knot at the end when you're finished. And then make like a stitch right in the center of the pom-pom again, a little bit a ways from where your thread came up already, and go back into the bunny fabric here. See where your stitch is coming out right there. Try and be close to that one so that it's in one place and you don't have to use a lot of thread to tie it on or to sew it on. Okay, and then we're completing our stitch through on that side, going through the tail, and we're going to do that one more time at least to get this tail on. So come up through the bottom here, through some of the fabric, and right through the center of the pom-pom. You can pull kind of tight because it's attached pretty well. And then one more time through the pom-pom in the center, and then pick up a little bit of the fabric of the sock here on the side. Oh yeah. Okay, and then hold the smaller end of the thread and just pull, and then that should have your tail nice and attached. And then we're going to tie a knot like we did before. So you've got the shorter end here and your needle and longer piece of thread here, and you've got the shorter end wrapped around your finger. Wrap the longer end around and then come through the hole or the loop to tie your knot. That's number 1. We'll do 3 of those. Number 2 and number 3. Okay, good. Pincushion your bunny for a second with your needle so you don't lose that, and then trim your thread. Okay, you can set your needle aside now in another pincushion. Okay, so that is your sock bunny basics. Like I said, you could make a little sweater for your sock bunny out of that other piece that we didn't use earlier that we trimmed off on the bottom, or a headband. So here's him with a headband, or you can bring that down and make him a little sweater right here, or a scarf. Or if you have a different contrasting sock that you want to use, or one with a different pattern, you could use that too. You could also tie a ribbon on your sock bunny around his neck. That's a nice fun thing to do, and you could sew a nose or draw one if you have maybe a white paint marker or something. That would be cute. But your sock bunny is essentially finished now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. If you want more ideas for activities and things to do, please check out the library's website, www.huntleylibrary.org, and I hope that we get to see you in person soon. Thanks.